Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now. Get insight into their daily habits and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Greene shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And we're on the three-peat, the third solo episode in a row. I'm starting to love them. I think it's just going to become a regular thing. Maybe I should have been doing this all along. But today we have everything you need to know about house hacking. And I'm telling you, I'm giving you all the gems, everything that you don't know, everything that you need to know, and all the stuff that you didn't even know you needed to know right now. This is episode 348 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And it's another solo show. Again, I hope you're enjoying these. Everything you need to know about house hacking. I know it's become a little bit harder to house hack with rates like this, but if you go back and listen to all the shows, you'll find that house hacking is a trend, and a lot of my guests did it before there was even terminology for it. It was just smart real estate investing, leveraging costs, paying down your rent. This is something that obviously has become super popularized, but there's a lot of different things that go into the bag that you need to know about that I want to help you figure out. Personally, I've never house hacked, but if you look at how I've invested over my whole life, a lot of my house purchases were generally house hacks for me. I knew I was going to leave. I was leveraging the time I was have there, but that's kind of like a live and flip type of thing. House hacking in general, in case you don't know, maybe you're new to the show, maybe you're new to real estate investing, is basically buying a multi-unit building, living in one unit, renting another. We're going to go into how you can do that in a commercial property as well, which is kind of underknown in the real estate investing world. But I just want to give you the best tips that I can. May leave a couple things out. I've got some notes for you, but we're just going to go for it. And I think it's going to give you an idea of whether you can still do it. The answer is yes. If I were going back and I had a different trajectory, I didn't have a dad who was a real estate investor, but I had learned some about real estate. It's not even a question that my first investment would have been a house hack. Like a lot of my guests, I would have done it in college. I would have bought a place and then rented rooms to my friends. You get the best of all worlds. That's kind of like your ideal play. And you can still do that as a young professional too. There's lots of ways to do this as a couple. There's so many options. So let's get to it. Everything you need to know about house hacking, I'm going to talk about in this episode. Maybe not everything. I'm sure I'll leave out a couple things. Not going to talk about home inspections because that's a whole nother show. But I want to start with one of the most important things, and it really goes to the mindfulness principles that are behind this podcast. It goes to what your goal is. You have to know going into house hacking that it's not going to be your typical, you're not getting a single family. Can you get a really nice house hack? Yeah. You're just going to leverage more money on the kind of experiential side if you go for it. So that's where we're going to find the balance. In my opinion, if you want a house hack, you need to have this goal: reducing your housing costs. If you go into house hacking with today's mortgage interest rates with the idea that you want to make money, I don't think that's very reasonable in a lot of markets, but I also just don't think that's the best way to play it. You, definitely want to have a goal of learning how to be a landlord and seeing if you want to be a rental property owner in the future. That's number one. And then number two is obviously going to be reducing your housing costs. You want to make sure that you can live as cheaply as possible. If you're paying $2,000 in rent for where you're living now, and you can somehow figure out how to house hack, and we're going to go through the strategies, and now your rent's only $500 a month, because you live in a smaller place or you got a roommate in your side and the other side's bigger. There's so many options. You're looking to reduce your housing costs to as little as possible. If you're really lucky and you're in a good market where you can do this, you're also possibility of cash flow, especially if you do a 2+1, which we're going to talk about. So, you should probably be taking notes if you're not driving, because this is it. You can always come back to this. You can look at the show notes, but I'm going to go through it. And remember, I've been a licensed agent for almost 13 years now. I've closed tons of house hacks for clients. Obviously, I'm an investor specialist in New Jersey, and New Jersey is a very hard market to house hack. Still have people doing it. And it's possible. You just have to know what you're looking for. So remember, your goals when you go to house hack should not be to cash flow. If you cash flow, great job. But your goal should be, number one, reduce your housing costs. Number two, learn how to be a landlord. Don't try to outsource landlording on your first house hack. You want to learn this stuff, even if you don't want to learn it. Do you know what I mean? You can't, the fact that someone would hire a property manager when they live in the place is just like, that's illogical. You need to figure the stuff out. It doesn't mean you need to fix the toilets. I don't like to do any of that stuff. You just hire someone. That's the whole point of everything. You have to figure out what you're going to like in real estate investing. And part of it is enjoying the ride, seeing what you like. You might decide right away, you know what, landlording is just not for me. I'm going to get my first year here. I'm going to move out. I'm actually going to sell it. Just don't want to be a landlord, rather invest in self-storage passively. Or you may say, this really isn't that hard. If you pick the right tenants and you have a good property and you're doing the upkeep, you're just kind of cruising for the whole year. Maybe you develop a friendship. We've seen a lot of multifamilies where the prior owner is friends with the other tenant. Sometimes that doesn't do them favors because they give them long leases. But so keep it in mind what your goals are. Don't focus on cash flow. That means you read the house hacking book that was, it's old now. It's just not realistic with today's mortgage rates, and to hope that they're going to come down, that's not realistic either. You just have to focus on the present and what it is. What it's going to do for you is you're going to get into a property, you're going to be able to earn equity, and you're going to reduce your housing costs. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. Again, if I was doing it all over again in a different scenario where I didn't have a dad who was telling me everything about real estate investing, house hacking would definitely be my first purchase. You could even do it with a friend. If you're really good friends, buy that place together, or obviously with a partner. You're really setting up for good shape. If you have some help, you're really in good shape. But I'd say if you go back over, we're at episode 348, there's probably 6 people who started house hacking in college, some with the help of their parents, some without. 6 to 8, I would say. So go back, listen to those episodes. I think it's worthwhile for you to see. So let's start now after our goal with what you're going to look for. So these are really, really important tips. Like if you're a novice to real estate investing and you're just getting started, these are important. And they're important because most realtors don't know anything about house hacking. You have 1% of realtors who understand house hacking. If that, it could be 0.3% of realtors get house hacking and work with house hackers. It's a very niche thing to do. And there's a lot of things that could really disrupt your purchase or get you into a contract and immediately out of one because you boned them up. So what do you want to look for? Let's just, this whole time, we're just going to talk about a 2-family most of the time because that's the most accessible price-wise. So we're going to focus on 2 families, but remember, you can do this for 3 families, 4 families, and PS, pro tip at the end, mixed-use properties. But let's just consider we're doing a 2-family. So you want to have one of those units vacant. If it's a 3 or 4 family, you don't need 2 units vacant. You just need 1 unit vacant. Why? Because that's where you're going to live. And you have a 60-day requirement to move into the property, so you need a unit vacant. The old days of hoping that someone moves out or greasing the wheels or sending your mail there, that's not going to get it done. That's called mortgage fraud. You want to have 1 unit open. So if your realtor doesn't understand how to read the MLS and see what the rents are, or text the agents to see when the lease end dates are, if you have 2 tenants in the property in a 2-family and both lease end dates are more than 60 days from when your potential closing would be, you're not getting that property. And PS, even if their closing dates are soon and those people aren't planning on leaving, you're not probably going to close, or you're not going to get in there in time. And then your loan could be revoked. So you're really going to get yourself in trouble. You'd have to just convert up to a 20% down. That's probably what would happen. Instead of whatever you're putting down, 3.5 be the absolute bottom, 5, 10%. This is why you can do so well at house hacking. Will you pay PMI? Sure. Will you be getting rental income? Yes. So that's the trade-off. So you want 1 unit vacant. You should never, ever spend the time looking at a two-family that's fully occupied with leases that go out more than 60 days. If you include closing time, 90 days. If it's like 90 days and they're leaving, then maybe you can just slow roll the closing. That could work. But generally, if it's fully occupied, it's just a bad use of your time to do it. If it's owner occupied, that's great. Obviously, they're leaving. So these are things that your real estate agent, which we'll get to as a part of this podcast, your real estate agent needs to understand how to make sure that those rents are correct, what the lease end dates are, if they're holding securities, and if any of these units are owner occupied, because obviously that owner is going to be leaving. So that sets the stage. 1 unit vacant, that's what you need. What I prefer and what I've said on a lot of podcasts and what I do for my clients is it depends on what you want as an experience. Most people who are going into a house hack, they want to earn as much money as they can or want to pay down their rental payments, monthly payments, as much as possible. So in order to do that, your best option is an uneven multifamily. What's that? It just means that 1 unit has more bedrooms than the other. Why? Because then you can live in the smaller unit and get more rent. So if you're just a single person and there's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath over a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and the 2-bedroom, 1-bath is rented for the next 2 years, you would the only option for moving into the 4-2, if you don't want to just absolutely get crippled by money, is to have 3 roommates. So that's a great idea. We're going to talk about that. I like that. But generally, if you're a single person who wants to live by themselves or a couple who really wants to cut costs, you're really looking for that like 3-bed, 1-bath or 3-bed, 2-bath over or next to a 1-1. And next to is where it really gets complicated. Usually your over under are where you're going to have the uneven multis, because you could have like a duplex on top and a garden unit. Those are great. Live in the garden unit for a year. You're really in good shape. You're saving a lot of rent by getting in the big rent in the top. So when they're side by side, most of the time they're the exact same layout. I have a couple clients who have them that look side by side, but they're not. They're really up and down. So you have to really look at a lot of properties, get a lot of reps to understand what you're looking for. And reps is important. It means you need a real estate agent who's willing to show you and educate you along the way. Remember, I just estimated, 0.3, 0.4 of 1% of realtors know about house hacking. They probably don't even know that term, almost all of them. It's just not, if they've never been on Bigger Pockets, they've never heard of it. So you can't just go with any realtor to house hack. You will lose your shirt. Okay, so in addition to your uneven layout, here's some kind of quirky options that can really work. You have your 2+1 or 3+1, whatever you like it. In the case of one of my friends, he has a 2+2. What does that mean? That means 2 legal and 1 illegal if you're 2+1. So generally what that is 2 legal units on top and a basement unit that has a full bath. So that you may not be looking at a legal 3-family. That's why you want to pull the town card. But in most jurisdictions, if you are the owner and you're owner occupying and it's legal to have the bedroom and the bathroom down there, you as the owner can live in the +1. So you're getting a 2-family, but you're getting 3 units. So if you live in the unit, you're getting 2 units of income instead of 1 in a 2+1. You want to make sure that your agent understands this. You want to understand the town card. These are all things that you really need to look at to make sure you have a full picture, but also that you're going in with a full head of steam. And if your realtor doesn't know these things, you got to scrap it. You got to look for someone else. If you ever need help finding a house hack specialist anywhere in the country, email me at jonathan@trustgreene, that has an E at the end.com. We'll hook you up with a house hack specialist anywhere that you are. We know agents all over the country. I personally do, and I know who knows house hacking. So that's your 2+1 or 3+1. It's a great option. I love it for a single person because it's usually going to be not the greatest unit. I prefer the attic unit to the basement unit personally, but then you have egress issues. Again, you can't rent that unit. If the town has it as a 2-family, you can't rent out the +1. But living in it, you can do. It's questionable whether you want to bring that up to the town, but they won't let you rent that, and kills a lot of deals where agents misrepresent it as a 3-family. It's not a 3-family, even though they have 3 paying renters in there. You can't even count that rent in the bonus unit because they're going to get kicked out. And then you have your new option, which is a single family with an ADU. If you've listened to my shows, I have a long history with accessory dwelling units. You can look that up. That's a whole episode. But I have a detached accessory dwelling unit over my garage. My daughter lived there for 2 years. Now my son's living there. It's great. Houses with ADUs or your modified mother-daughter, those are great options. A mother-daughter is a house with a room with a bathroom that has a separate entrance that you know, whether you can rent it, again, questionable, but owner occupied, you're thinking with a 2+1 ADU, or this mother-daughter, you're thinking you live in the smallest one, you rent out the other part, make more money, you actually might cash flow with these strategies. Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this house hacking episode. You may even need to put it down to like 0.8 speed because I was on a roll. But I mentioned it several times during this episode. If you need help finding a house hacking expert, contact us. We can help you. I own a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage. I'm in New Jersey, but we handle referrals all over the country, especially when you're looking for investor specialists. We'll vet them, find them, send me an email at jonathan@trustgreen, Greene has an E at the end, .com. We will get you the agent that will help you find the house hack of your dreams. Let's get back to the show. Other things you want to look for that are important for your long-term value and to set you apart from other multifamilies in the area. Parking, more parking, the better. That's just, I mean, do you need to have parking for everyone? No, not in a city. You don't, but you have to assess what parking's like in the area to see if it's really viable and how long you may need to wait to get a renter. Laundry is really important. How many do they have in-unit laundries? That's going to get you more rent every time. That's huge if you have in-unit laundry. It's also a potential hazard if you have an up and down and the person overflows their laundry. So those are things to talk about. Make sure that you have those water protectors on that will set an alarm. Separated utilities. This is huge. Again, don't have a good realtor. They're not even going to know what they're looking for. So when you go into the basement on a multifamily, no matter how many units there are, 2, 3, or 4, you want to see that there's the same amount of boiler or furnaces and hot water heaters as the amount of units that there are. You want to check to see how many gas meters there are and water meters. For gas meters, you should have an extra one. Same with electric. Electric, you should have an extra one. That's for the common area space. So if you have a 2-family, there actually should be 3 electric boxes. Because if you don't check and the utilities aren't separated, you have to find a way to build a tenant. And if the units aren't exactly the same size, or even if people use heat differently, again, remember, if there's one unit, there's only going to be one thermostat. That means one unit controls the temperature of the other. If you want to get calls all winter, sign up for that. But it's a huge cost to put in a secondary furnace. So these are things that you need to look at. If you do only have one big furnace and everything is just one unit, you want to look up RUBS, radio utility billing system. I think it's system for the S. I've had clients who've used it. They've gone off of it, but it's a way to use the square footage to assess the costs that way. But it does always create arguments if you don't have separated units. And last thing is going to be backyard. The way that I look at it, you have 2 options with a backyard. You can slice it down the middle with a fence, so each person has it if they each have the same access. Or if the only access really comes from the first unit, I would just rent it at a bump up to just the first floor unit and not give access to the second floor. So you're going to get less rent if they're the same size, but they're going to get that. And you can do that with parking too. You can rent the parking. If you have garage spaces, again, if you get lucky and you get like 4 garage spaces, you can maybe give 1 to each person, or you just make them park in the drive and you rent out the garage spaces. Now you're crushing. There's a lot of different ways to make money with extra stuff, especially garages, contractors, electricians. Those people will rent those for, I mean, in a lot of markets up to $200, $300, even more a month. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do well with excess spaces. All right, that's what to look for. We've gone through goals and what to look for. Here's what not to look for. This is why I fire clients. Probably done an episode on it. If you're new and you're not an experienced investor, which you obviously are not if you're going to house hack, unless you're making a choice to house hack later and you already have a bunch of properties, it could still work. Kind of like the idea of an old I'm considering myself an old person. An old person house hack sounds kind of interesting. I might be up for that actually one day, but I'd probably just get a 3-family and have my kids live there. That would be the best thing. Do not look at as is properties. Just don't. If it's marked as is, or you see that anywhere, your agent tells you, oh, this is being marked as is, that's not for you. That's for investors. You're not going to win, and you're going to go to inspections and you're going to want to make requests and you can't. It's just not for you. So don't waste your time. Don't waste your agent's time by looking at as is properties. And don't look for a full renovation if you've never done anything. I mean, if you can do a live-in renovation, it would have to be habitable. But that's old school. I don't feel like the newer investors want to do the renovation and go to YouTube University. It's hard. And if you listen to Gary Streisky's episode, he did one where he was peeing in a bucket for like a long time. Like, this is just how it goes. So I don't think everybody wants to do that. I wouldn't personally sign up for a renovation, although I do love a 203K low money down house hack if you're up for it. If your place is in pretty decent shape and you use that extra to upgrade the kitchen, everything, you can do that with a 203K. It's pretty solid. So that's an option, but I just wouldn't go into a big renovation because if it's that big, it's probably not going to be declared habitable for your owner occupied loan. Let's talk about how to find a realtor. And in parentheses, we'll put end to lender, but I've already kind of broken it down for you on the realtors. Most don't have a clue what I'm talking about. And the ones that do, those are the ones that you want to look at. So how do you find out? You go on Zillow.com and you look up agents in the area. You click the button that says investors, that they specialize in investors. And then you look through the properties that they've sold. Zillow is now linked to the MLS in almost all areas unless they're a non-disclosure state. So you can actually see what all of the agents sold. It automatically links there. So it's not like the agent forgot to upload. If their MLS is uploaded, it's going to go there. If they don't have a Zillow profile, that's something for you to think about as well. But you can go through and see if they've sold a bunch of two families. If they're selling a lot of multifamily, they surely work with house hackers. Those aren't just, just your regular investor buyers. And if they've sold as a listing agent a bunch of multis, they understand this game as well. They understand house hacking. Look, all you have to do is say, what do you think about house hacking? If somebody doesn't know what it is, you just got to park and go on to somebody else immediately. Because if they don't know what house hacking is, they're way, way beyond the curve of not knowing how this goes. You go back to the steps that I told you on what to look for. I hope you're writing this down, or at least you're going to go back and you can just tell AI to record this whole thing, give you the show notes. We probably have transcripts available somewhere, probably have a transcript on Riverside, but I'm sure it's populated somewhere. So you just want to find someone who's a house hack specialist. The easiest way to know is throw out the term, see if they know it. If not, cut bait, find somebody else. And you want to find someone who's willing to do the work and understands the things that I told you in what to look for. How to document the rents. So documenting the rents is really important. You want to make sure that they have the rents correctly, but what's more important than them having the rents correct? Like, both tenants may be leased for $1,500 each, but don't you really want to know that they've been paying? Yes, so you can request bank statements and proof of statements that they have been paying and that they're up to date. If you're in an attorney state, your attorney will put that in an attorney review letter that says, the seller is declaring that all rents are paid up to date and there's been no delinquencies. So that's something that's really important. But I want to talk to you something that's a little bit of like a side note. You should know that, but again, a lot of realtors don't know that either. You want to know how to talk to tenants when you're on a showing. There's no classes or no information about this out there anywhere because people don't think about this stuff. But when you're a buyer and you're looking at a multifamily, and let's just say it's a best case scenario, there's one tenant in there, there's one unit vacant, you're going to live in the vacant unit. Your whole job is to assess the tenant that's there. Because they may be leased for 8 more months. You're stuck with them for 8 months. So number one, you want to be nice to them. Number two, you want to assure them that by buying the property, it doesn't upset their lease. Their lease is their lease and they're staying to that term. And you're happy to talk to them about it after you get them all set. But I talk to the tenants as if my clients are going to win every time. I say, there's no worries. They're going to live in the other units. They are going to have, you are going to have an owner next door. Some tenants don't like that. That's not your problem. You just want to find out, like, first thing, what are you going to look at? Cleanliness. Is the place clean? If I see a spotless place, immediately I'm taking less rent. If you have a spotless tenant and they're paying $200 under market value, when say market value is, like $1,800 or $2,000, I'm good with that. I just want the upkeep good. So if I appreciate a tenant at lower rent that has good upkeep over a tenant at higher rent that has bad upkeep and is going to make me do repair costs. So you want to talk to the tenant. Hey, how's it going? How's the landlord treat you? Oh, great. Everything's good. How do you pay your rent? Cool. Do you like living here? Do you think you're going to stay? Do you want to stay past your lease date? That sets you up to figure out what you're going to do along the way. It will also give you about 10,000 PS. I say this because tenants are home a lot of the time on multifamily showings. They don't like doing showings. They like to stay home. They don't want people like looking through their video game collection. So this is just part and parcel of like what you have to do while you're looking at properties. But you just want to be a nice person, because if you win, you want to have already developed a good relationship. I have one closing not this week, but the next week. And we already have a great relationship with both tenants. It's an investor. It's not a house hack, but like I know everything about that. I've talked to them like, 6 times for my client. So I've developed that good relationship so I can bridge the gap for my clients. One more thing that you need to do when we're talking about documenting the rents, your attorney should do this if you're in an attorney state. If you're not in an attorney state, you want to immediately go to this. It's called getting an estoppel certificate. Do you know what that is? Have you ever heard of that? An estoppel certificate is a legally binding document used in real estate transaction that confirms the current status of lease agreements between a landlord and a tenant. It provides verification of key lease details, such as the amount of rent and any claims against the landlord, ensuring that all parties have a clear understanding of the lease terms. You do not close on any type of multifamily investment property, any rental property, without an estoppel certificate from the owner. It just lays out all the terms, what the security deposit that's being held, because that will get transferred at closing to you. You need to know all these things, and you need a plan for how you're going to collect rent and how you're going to be a landlord along the way. But make sure you ask for an estoppel certificate. One kind of like, please remember, I mentioned it in the beginning, don't hope that a tenant gets out in time. You just want a vacant unit. Best case scenario. So actually, let's go pros and cons on a fully vacant 2-family versus one vacant and one open for you. The pros for the one vacant and one already leased is that you walk in, you already have money coming in. You're signing up for cash flow to pay down your rent. However, your rent is usually going to be lower than market value. Just in general, probably 75% of the time, if you're walking into a lease, it's going to be at least a little bit to a lot bit below market value. So it's your job to get that up. You can use Dion McNeely's strategy. Look up his original podcast on Bigger Pockets. I've gone back to it a million times. It's an absolute rock solid strategy that I use to talk to tenants to get them the rent in the right spot. So Dion McNeely, Bigger Pockets, look up his first episode on there. But the corollary is having a fully vacant unit, which a lot of my clients buy. Then you can set the rents if you have a good agent. Myself, I list all the properties for all my landlords. I have a lot of landlords, so we do a lot of rental listings. We handle all of the intake. We make sure we're vetting the tenants through Rent Spree. Then we're going to send over the best options. We obviously don't take the first one. We're going to give them advice along the way. And then we stay involved a lot without being property managers, because we train all of our landlords to be their own property manager. So there's pros and cons to having an occupied unit and having it fully vacant. Personally, I like it fully vacant because I just want to go get the highest rents that I can. Usually fully vacant, that's going to be a renovation. It's going to be fully vacant every time because they don't usually lease those unless they really want some of that money. But on the flip side, it's kind of sweet when you buy a place and you're just walking into somebody paying you money at the house that you live at. That's house hacking. I mean, that's house hacking in a nutshell. You walk into the house that you're living in and there's someone next door paying you money. That's why house hacking is awesome. I hope you're getting it. I love it as an idea. Again, I never did it. I just wasn't in the position. I was in and out of different properties. My brothers and I lived together. I lived in separate houses. I lived in ADUs, but never lived in a multifamily at all. So I have 2 ending pro tips for you before we wrap it up, trying to keep these around 30 to 45 minutes. So my pro tip is one that I've talked about on so many other episodes with short-term rental hosts, mid-term rental hosts. This is your best option going forward, especially when you consider that rates are high. Will this work in every market? Actually, I'm going to tell you it probably will. It probably will work in almost any market, but you have to do a few things to do it. So if you have a 2-family and you look at it and you're like, long-term rent, you're going to live in a small unit. You're getting $2,500 in the big unit. That sounds pretty good, but you'd be really pumped if you got $3,500 in rent, but that's not reasonable for long-term rent. So what do you say? You say, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do midterm rental in the other side when the tenant goes out. Tenant goes out, they buy a house, they leave, you're vacant. Instead of putting it up for rent, you're just like, let's go for it. I'm going to do a midterm rental, see if I can get $3,500 a month, which is pretty probable. If you're at $2,500, you should be able to get $3,500 in most market if you have some of the key things that you need for midterm rentals: parking, laundry, pet friendly, backyard. Those things will crush it on midterm rentals. So you put it up. The only thing is you have to furnish it, and you have to make it nice, and you have to be a little bit more available as a manager. But remember, if you're house hacking and you're doing MTR, you're right there. That's the key. If you're doing short-term rentals, if the ordinances in your town allow it, I still think a small short-term rental, if you're transportation friendly, can work in a lot of areas. I'd probably hedge my bets going midterm rental first, but if you can do short-term rental and you know there's others in the area, that's a sweet setup. You're right there. If you're good at cleaning, you can do the cleaning yourself. That's, again, not for me. I'm not a good cleaner. I'm just lazy about it. I don't like it, so I don't do it well. But these are how you can upgrade your rent on the other side. You have your long-term rent, steady, basic, hopefully not a lot of contact between you and them if you keep a good upkeep and they're good tenants. Then you have your middle ground, which is your midterm rental. I've done a ton of episodes on midterm rental. You can go on my Substack, look up the guide to midterm rentals. And then we have a guide to short-term rentals as well. So you kind of go down LTR, MTR, STR, gives you a lot of options with your other unit. So when you're looking at your investment now you have a diversified investment inside itself. It's something that you can live in. That's your residential housing. It's something that you can rent, long-term rent. Oh, cool. That's very nice and easy. Now you can do midterm rental. Wow, that's not bad. You're getting a little bit of return. Maybe you're at a 1.8x on that. Now you go short-term rental and you're in a good area, 2.7x on that to 3x. Pretty solid. And you can do that in the future. You could have a nice long-term renter, and then over time, you've got built up some equity. So say they move out in 18 months after you've lived there. Now you have 60 grand in equity. Rates are better. So you do a cash out refi. Boom. Now you have the money to punch out to furnish the place. These are how you evaluate midterm rentals, short-term rentals inside your baby, the house hack. And again, you need to talk to agents who know this. It's a very, very small percentage. Again, email me at jonathan@trustgreene.com. If you need a house hack agent in your area, we'll set up a referral. I vet them myself, and then my team follows up with them, make sure it's a good fit. So pro tip number 2, one of my all-time favorites. I've mentioned it on so many shows. I actually tell it to a lot of guests on the show, and they say, oh, shit, I've never heard of that. So I know it's something unique, and I know because my friend, Tommy P., did it. I don't think he actually lived there, but he did a mixed use as a residential property buy because the residential part of it was 51% of the square footage. So you can buy a mixed use and get an owner occupied loan. You can even house hack, FHA house hack, if the residential square footage is 50.1% of the square footage. So basically you just need more residential square footage than commercial retail. If you have that, the typical setup, 1 retail and then 2 units on top, same sizes, crushing it. Boom. That's an owner occupied. You can even go FHA in a market where it's not as competitive and you're able to win. You are off to the races, my friend. You have a commercial tenant, again, much more steady, but when they go out, harder to lease, not as easy to get someone in. So that's a risk there as well. But you could be walking into a 5-year lease with a small bodega. That's solid, not great for rats in general when you have food down low, but a lot of like salons in there. Tough business, so you have to really look at the business down there. What if you want to run your own business and you want to live in an apartment upstairs and then you open a business downstairs and you have a rent in the middle at the second rental mode and you're house hacking that? That's incredible. I really hope that you're driving or walking and you're having these mind blown moments. I really hope so, because that's why I created this podcast. We're almost at episode 350. I want to give you the tools that other people won't tell you. I don't have any courses to sell you. I've actually never sold a single thing in 348 episodes. On the 10 best books episode, you can go to an affiliate link. Again, I probably make like 1 cent per book, but I don't have a mastermind. All my old meetups, they were all free. There's nothing out there. Might we find something later? I don't know. I might do a retreat or something, but I just love giving people the tools to help them invest smarter, to invest more mindfully, because it's a crap show out there with all the gurus and all the mentors and all the, funnels that kick you into a new mastermind. And honestly, most of them, even when they're terrible, you probably can learn stuff. If you go to my fake guru episode, you'll find that out. But I hope this has been eye-opening and potentially mind-blowing on everything you need to know about House Hack. If I've left out anything, the best place to get me is go to the zenandtheartofrealestateinvesting.com website, go to the contact form, send me a message, or you can comment on the Spotify if you listen on Spotify, which is where I listen to my podcast now because I want to see what my trends are for the year and what I listen to most. I hope this has been really helpful. Again, last time I'm going to tell you, and this is the third time, if you need to find a house hack friendly agent anywhere in the United States, email me at jonathan@trustgreene, Greene has an E at the end.com. We will help you get set up with a house hack agent. We vet them. We make sure they know what they're doing. We talk about house hacks. We research their sales. We got you covered. Hope this has been helpful. See you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up in episode 349 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And it's a return guest. Yup, hold it with PM Jen. That's Jennifer Rulins, and she's back with the Buy and Hold Investor's Guide to finding, hiring, and firing a property manager. It's what you need. We'll see you next episode.